Good evening. I'll be reporting from my living room, and you'll be in class, I'm sorry to say. Tonight, I wanted to share with you my lesson plans for Team Tierra. I don't know if my mouth is going to correlate with the sound that's coming out of it, so pardon me if I look like a Jackie Chan movie. Anyway, I hope class is going well. Thank you, Mary Pat, again for this opportunity. And the purpose of my social studies lesson is to teach children the inequalities that exist between natural resources we have availability to here in the United States and abroad. The gist of the lesson is students will come into the classroom and be given by the teacher birth bracelets, which she'll staple on, which have factors about the country, the GPD, the birth and death rate, population density, all that kind of good stuff, but will not have the name of the country on it. The students will then enter the classroom and see on the board a sign that says something like, "Congratulations on being reborn. Today your challenge is to find the country of your birth." And so students will take atlases, internet resources, and work in small teams to try to determine the country of their birth. These bracelets will be color coordinated so they can probably find their team members. And in the front of the room, on the floor, will be a world map drawn out in chalk. Students, once they've located their supposed country of origin, will stand on the location on the map that they believe they're from. After this, the teacher will have them check their answers by having them flip over their birth bracelets to determine whether they were correct. Any shuffling that needs to happen will take place, and the teacher will then turn on the overhead, which will show a sheet of natural resources we'll be talking about and some of the countries we'll be talking about, which is illustrated by the children. The teacher will then proceed to ask each group to select a candidate to come up and be a representative of the country, which will they will be collecting all of the natural resources and bringing them back to equally disperse amongst their team. So, since the countries the teacher will have chosen will have been very vast and varied in their natural resources, say China and Peru, or Guam and the United States, or whomever you wish to include in this resource list, the inequalities are going to be fairly great and fairly evident right away. So if they're given Oreos to show the amount of oil in their country, obviously some of the Middle Eastern countries would have more natural resources than we would here in the United States, things like that. But then vice versa. Same thing with population density. Many of you saw in Ava's class that lesson that had similar premises. This is along the same lines. After this exercise and the students have had the opportunity to consume their resources, they'll be reflecting on a few questions from a reflection sheet, which I'm going to read to you right off the paper. Those reflection questions are, which they will reflect on in their social studies journals. How did you feel about the amount of natural resources you were allotted as a citizen of your new birth country? How would your life be different if you were brought up in this country rather than in the United States? And how would you suggest that the United States help with the distribution of natural resources across the globe? And is there something that you could do as an individual to help this distribution? And as an extension question for extra credit, do you feel that we as Americans appreciate the natural resources we have allotted to us? So students will be working on these as seed questions in their journal for the rest of the period after they've consumed their natural resources. And these will be seedlings for a paper that they're going to write as a continuation of this project in the coming days. Once they've researched the topics of the inequalities of these countries, still as the birth citizens, the class will decide on a few points that they would like to share in the podcast, and we'll flush it out in a student-led committee. And that will be what is presented in our final podcast. So there is my social studies lesson.